Here are 10 hard-hitting reasons Brazil's economy stalled, and the final one shows how it can roar back. 10. The boom that fizzled. Brazil was once a growth legend. From the 1950s to the 1980s, the economy surged. In the 1990s, inflation was finally tamed, and the early 2000s brought another leap as China's rise met Brazil's resources. Millions joined the formal economy. Malls filled, factories hummed, and the country won the right to host the World Cup and the Olympics. But since 2010, adjusted for inflation, the economy is barely higher. Per capita income went sideways. A decade that began with hope blurred into a long plateau. Why it matters is simple. When a huge workforce spends a decade with little progress, frustration builds. Families delay plans, businesses hesitate on big bets, and the national mood turns brittle. Momentum, so hard to build, slips away. 9. A commodity and credit growth model. While China and India built growth around heavy investment, manufacturing, and rapid urbanization, Brazil leaned on commodity exports and a burst of domestic credit. Soy moved from Mato Grosso to China. Iron ore flowed from Carajás to steel mills across Asia. Oil from pre-salt fields promised riches. At home, subsidized loans and payroll-deducted credit swelled consumption. Tax breaks juiced sales of cars and appliances. It worked until the cycle turned. Global prices dipped, China slowed, and households hit debt ceilings. Without a deeper engine, growth faded. Why it matters. A model powered by commodities is volatile and learns slowly. You don't build the dense supplier networks, factory floor routines, and process improvements that compound year after year. When prices fall, there's no cushion of productivity gains to keep incomes climbing. 8. Investment too low for liftoff. You cannot grow without building. For years, Brazil's total investment hovered near 20% of GDP. That's not enough to modernize ports, rail, power, and digital networks at continental scale. Public investment has been especially thin, squeezed by mandatory spending and debt service. High interest rates and policy uncertainty kept private capital on the sidelines or crowded it into short-term finance. Concessions and public-private partnerships exist, but pipelines have been stop-start. Low investment means fewer machines, less modern infrastructure, and slower adoption of new technology. Over time, that dents productivity and wage growth. Why it matters. Without capital deepening, businesses cannot scale and workers cannot use better tools. The result is slower growth and smaller paychecks, no matter how hard people work. 7. Broken logistics and costly ports. Most freight in Brazil moves by road across a continent-sized country. Trucks carry soy from the heartland to distant ports along highways that clog in the dry season and bog in the rains. Railways, perfect for bulk cargo, are underbuilt and underused outside a few corridors. Coastal shipping could tie the economy together, but cabotage took years to liberalize and remains small. Ports like Santos and Paranagua improved, but still struggle with fees, queues, and paperwork that drag out clearance times. The result is a silent tax on everything. A Brazilian product leaves the farm or factory already carrying a logistics penalty. Hard to swallow in a world where competitors glide on rail and barge to tidewater. Why it matters. If it's expensive and slow to move goods, companies avoid long-term commitments. Supply chains stay shallow, industries struggle to scale, and high-value exports never take off. 6. The tax maze that punishes builders. The famous Custo Brasil is real. Taxes sprawl across federal, state, and municipal levels. Firms navigate ICMS, IPI, PIS, COFINS, ISS, and special regimes like Simples and Lucro Presumido, each with its own rules, credits, and exemptions. Compliance hours are among the highest in the world. Many companies hire teams or outside experts just to file paperwork. States compete in fiscal wars, offering selective incentives that distort investment. And the tax base leans heavily on consumption, which hits lower-income households hardest. There's a path out, a long-debated reform to unify and simplify into modern value-added taxes, with credit chains that actually work. It started, but the transition is complex and will take time. Why it matters. Time and money spent navigating taxes are not spent on research, equipment, or hiring. Complexity scares off investment, cements incumbents, and drags on growth. The strangest fact is still coming, but first, let's look at fact 5. 5. Deindustrialization and Dutch disease. In the mid-20th century, Brazil built one of the strongest industrial bases in the developing world. It made machinery, chemicals, and consumer goods at scale. When commodity prices rose in the 2000s, the real appreciated. Imported goods got cheaper. Domestic manufacturers lost ground, and margins thinned. Manufacturing slipped to roughly 15% of value added. Unlike successful economies that pivoted into advanced services, engineering, design, software, Brazil shifted more into retail, informal work, and personal services. There are beacons, Embraer in aerospace, WEG in electrical equipment, a thriving agri-tech cluster around Embrapa, but they are islands in a sea of low-productivity services. Why it matters? Without competitive factories or advanced tradable services, it is hard to absorb a large urban workforce into high-productivity jobs. The economy fragments into pockets of excellence and vast swaths of stagnation. 4. A skills gap that blocks the upgrade. Enrollment rose and years of schooling increased. But the quality problem is big. International assessments show too many students struggle with basic reading and math by the end of primary school. Few reach top performance levels. Teacher training and support vary widely across regions. Dropout rates spike in secondary school as students disengage. Vocational pathways exist through systems like Senai and Senac, but aren't scaled enough to meet modern industry needs. Universities produce talent, yet many graduates lack the practical skills employers seek. Meanwhile, the economy is digitizing. Software runs factories, logistics, and finance. Firms need technicians who can program machines, analysts who can make sense of data, supervisors who can manage quality and processes. The pipeline is too thin. Why it matters? In a world defined by code, automation, and new machines, skills beat everything. If workers can't operate systems, solve problems, and adapt quickly, productivity stalls and good jobs go elsewhere. 3. Inequality and regional divides. Inequality in Brazil is still severe even though it has fallen by some measures over the past decade. There is a sharp divide between the wealthier South and Southeast and the poorer North and Northeast. Education quality, economic opportunity, and public services vary widely not only across states but within metropolitan areas, from wealthy cores to underserved peripheries. Programs like Bolsa Familia eased extreme poverty and improved outcomes, but the opportunity gap remains wide. Inequality shapes everything: where businesses choose to invest, how safe neighborhoods feel, how long reforms can be sustained, whether people trust institutions to deliver. Why it matters? Inequality is not just a social issue, it's an economic one. It limits talent development, weakens social trust, and makes it harder to build coalitions for reforms that take time to pay off. 2. Politics, scandals, and policy whiplash. The Lava Jato investigation exposed widespread graft in construction and state-linked companies. Major contractors collapsed. Investment confidence plunged. In 2015-2016, the economy suffered back-to-back contractions, among the worst in modern history. There were mass protests, an impeachment, a truckers' strike that paralyzed roads, and the shock of a pandemic. Fiscal rules were tightened, then revised. A more independent central bank stabilized inflation, but political noise kept risk high. A new industrial push promises subsidized credit for health, security, and green tech. Supporters see revival. Critics see old tactics without deep reforms. Whiplash is expensive. Yesterday's incentives become today's taxes. Big projects start and stall. Investors wait on the sidelines, watching for the next swing. Why it matters? When rules swing, scandals dominate, and the state tries to solve everything with credit, private investors hold back and growth sags. Stability isn't flashy, but it's the foundation for compounding gains. 1. The productivity trap and how Brazil breaks it. The core problem is productivity. While peers lifted output per worker over the last 25 years, Brazil barely moved. Without rising productivity, wages flatline. The trap is the sum of everything above. Low investment, expensive logistics, a tax maze, fading factories, weak skills, big divides, political shocks. Breaking the trap means a new mix, sequenced for quick wins and durable change. Simplify and unify taxes, then make it work on the ground. Implement the new VATs with clean credit chains and real-time digital invoices so exporters get refunds fast. Kill cascading and uncertainty. Shrink compliance hours dramatically. If small firms can file in minutes instead of days, you unleash energy. Streamline permits and regulation. One-stop shops with fixed timelines for environmental and business licensing. Fewer agencies, clearer rules. Modernize logistics with a national corridor strategy. Finish and concession key rail links that move bulk. Expand coastal shipping. Digitize and unify customs through a single-window platform so containers clear in hours, not days. Open competition and connect to global value chains. Invest in teachers and learning that shows up in the classroom. A national, every child reading by grade 3 mission with training, coaching, and diagnostic assessments. Scale-proven vocational models with firms co-designing curricula and hiring graduates. Fund what works, not what's fashionable, and track outcomes on international benchmarks. Use industrial policy to crowd in private capital, not replace it. Target bottlenecks and spillovers, components, tooling, software, testing labs, where a real ecosystem can form. Condition support on export discipline and productivity gains. Sunset subsidies, publish results, and let the winners grow without perpetual crutches. Keep macro stability non-negotiable. Inflation near target, predictable fiscal rules, credible debt paths. Deepen local capital markets, so long-term projects can be financed without relying solely on subsidized banks. Encourage competition in credit, so the cost of money falls for productive firms. Why it matters? Get productivity moving, and Brazil turns its size, resources, and huge domestic market into sustained growth, not just a lucky streak. The payoff is tangible: faster wage growth, cheaper goods, competitive exports, safer cities as formal jobs expand, and public finances that improve because the economy grows. Brazil has the land to feed 1 billion people. It has oil, fresh water, wind, and sun. It has one of the largest domestic markets on Earth and islands of world-class excellence to build on. The difference between a lost decade and a new decade of gains is not fate. It is execution, consistent, boring, compound interest execution. Which lever should be pulled first? Tax simplification you can feel at the firm level in year 1? A logistics shock with a few high-impact rail and port concessions? A national literacy mission that changes a generation? You tell us, and let us know what we missed.